Alright, fifth and final round. So far we're 3-1, and match 5 we're on the play. Definitely keep this hand because, again, it's the turn 1 Serum Visions have multiple opportunities to try to find the second land, and since we have turn 2 Copter, and then turn 3, if we find a land, which we should by then, we can cast the Trinket Mage or the Vendilion Click to crew the Copter, and then we get another hit in. Or even if we don't find the third land, we can play the Wanderer to crew the Copter and attack with the Copter to loot to try to find a land. So this hand is very likely to come together. Obviously, we don't know what we're up against, but it is good enough to keep. So we're going to start by casting Serum Visions. So there's a Serum Visions and a Mausoleum Wanderer. And we bought them both. So we're just looking for lands at this point. We don't want to miss our third land drop. Alright, so we're up against Lantern. Looks like we do find our land, and there's another one on top. And we know that they have a bridge on top. So I'm going to try to make this, since Magic Online doesn't keep track of all the cards that we're seeing as the game progresses, I'm going to try to keep track of those for us. So there's a bridge so far that we know about from them. So we play our Copter on turn 2. They draw their bridge, and there's a Sanctum on top. Now they get to Thoughtseize us, take our click. So now we want to go ahead and Trinket Mage. We don't really need the Architect, but I mean, we wouldn't mind the Architect here. But really, we just want to resolve this Trinket Mage while we can. So we resolve the Trinket Mage, and we could get a Ballista or a Vial, which is pretty clear. We just get the Ballista. So now we have a Spell Stutter on top. We loot, we draw the Spell Stutter sprite, discard the extra island, we're drawing Academy Ruins. Now they have Ancient Stirrings on top, and whoa! Empty the hand. So they played their Sanctum, and now we know they just have one card in hand. We know that it's Bridge, that they have the Stirrings on top. So they have 3 mana in play and a Bridge in their hand. So we're basically just going to get one attack in, then they're going to resolve the Bridge. It's okay though. So we draw the Academy Ruins. We play the Wanderer so we can crew the Copter. And they Pixis to get rid of our top card because they don't want us to have it. Attack for 5. Loot, draw the Visions. Now there's a Trinket Mage on top. So now we want to play the Visions so we can draw the Trinket Mage because we want Trinket Mages in this matchup. So we Trinket Mage and we bottom top. So we top the Architect. I didn't see what the bottom card was. It was probably a land. So now in this spot, we just want to here. So we just pass because, well, they could be drawing a Thoughtseize. They end up not drawing a Thoughtseize. They get it off the top of their deck. But just holding up Spellstutter Sprite mana seems like a better option than casting Ballista for 1. Because if they kept the Thoughtseize on top, we would rather Spellstutter Sprite the Thoughtseize. And then untap and cast Ballista for more mana. Or a Trinket Mage for another Ballista or something. Whereas if we just cast the Ballista, then they draw the Thoughtseize and they get the Thoughtseize away, our Trinket Mage that they know we have. So Spellstutter Sprite can counter pretty much anything except the bridge. They're probably going to play the bridge, but that's okay. We're okay with them playing the bridge because we have Ballista. So they draw the Bauble, they play it, we counter the Bauble, then they play the bridge, and we know that they have a Decay on top. So now our game plan is, since we can't attack with anything anymore, so they have no cards in hand, and they have the bridge on the battlefield, our plan of dealing 9 damage basically involves walking Ballista. So we draw a Vial because there's not much else we can do. We just play the Ballista for 2. Opponent draws the Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decays the Ballista. We shoot them in response. They go to 7. We draw our Master of Waves, which doesn't help us much. Play the Trinket Mage, which gets us another Ballista. Alright, Field of Ruin on top. Alright, they Inquisition us. Sure, whatever. Ballista for 0 in response, just because we can. So we draw the Visions. Nothing really helps us in this spot. But we play our land. So now the Ancient Stirrings. What do they get? They get a Pithing Needle. What are you naming? Naming Walking Ballista. So in this spot, what I was going to do was put Ballista on top with the Academy Ruins, and that would force them to try to Codex Shredder us. And if they Codex Shredder us, we can get it back, um, put it back on top, and they probably just Pixis us and get rid of the Ballista. And so like we're not completely out of the game, but we're very unlikely to win at this point, given that they have double Shredder, double Pixis plus Lantern going, and they have the bridge. So really, our only ways to win at this point are Ballista, and they have multiple ways to keep us from getting to the Ballista. So I basically was just like, whatever, I'm not going to win this game, I'll just concede. So what we did here for the sideboard, and that was a pretty close game. If they didn't hit the discard spell and we cast the second Ballista, might have been able to get there. Or if they didn't hit the Abrupt Decay, there's just a few things that could have gone differently. But we end up sideboarding a lot of cards. So for this matchup, we bring in the fourth Trinket Mage, the Chalice, because Chalice for 1 is really good. We bring in the 4 Void Mage Prodigy and the 4 Ceremonial Rejection, because all those are very good against them. We bring in the Spellskite, because we can redirect a Abrupt Decay. We bring in a Pithing Needle, because we can name like Codex Shredder, or Ghoulcaller's Bell, or Pixis. And I think that's it. I would also bring in the Engineered Explosives, if you have that in your build. What I bring out, I take out the Spreading Seas, I take out the Smuggler's Copter, I take out the Master of Waves, and so that's 10 cards. And then I take out one of the Ballistas, because we don't really need 4 copies in this deck. We just need that as like one of our win conditions. But we have a lot of ways to keep Bridge off the board with all our counterspells, so it's not super necessary that we have 4 Ballistas. And then I took out 1 Wanderer, and if you have an Explosives in your sideboard, I would probably just take out 2 of the Mausoleum Wanderers. So we basically bring in most of our sideboard, all but just 2 or 3 cards, and we basically bring out all the cards that aren't essential in the matchup. So then game 2, on the play. Good hand, good hand. Start with a Vial. And we have multiple counterspells going on, basically. The Inquisition away our Spell Stutter. So we're just going to cast the Void Mage Prodigy. They know about it already. They Stirrings. Let's see, what do they find? They find nothing? Or just not reveal it? I'm not sure. So anyway, we attack, and now the Vial's on 2, so we're in pretty good shape. We just want to pass. Now they play Bridge. I'll just go ahead and sack that, counter it. End step, put the other one into play, untap, tick up to 3. So now we're in pretty good position. We attack, Field of Ruin, sack to kill their land, so we get an untapped island, take them off a color. So this Mox Opal's not helping them yet because they don't have the other artifacts. What our plan here is end step now to activate the vial, basically put the Vendilion Click on the battlefield, target them. Now we can sack the Click to counter a spell, and then we can sack the Void Mage to counter a spell. So we basically have 2 counter spells at our disposal. What are they doing? Oh, in response, they kill our creature. Okay, that was pretty good. So now our defenses are much lower, but we still get to click them and look at their hand. Whir of Invention and Glimmer Void. So we're going to take the Whir of Invention because next turn, if they just play the Glimmer Void and they improvise using the Mox, they can find a bridge. So if we don't take the Whir, next turn it'll be a bridge. So we take the Whir, give them a random card on their end step, untap, leave it on 3 because we boarded out the Masters, attack. Might as well cast the Ballista here because legendary, Vendilion Click's legendary. Or actually, that's not the reason. It's because we can Vial. So the reason that we are putting the Click into play during their draw step, even though they're legendary and we lose one, is because really their only way to get out of this situation involves casting Bridge this turn, or War of Invention. And they can't cast either of those cards during their draw step. So they can't get a bridge onto the battlefield during their draw step. We gave them a card during their last end step with the first click, and now they drew a card in their draw step this turn. So they have we know that they have a Glimmer Void in hand and 2 unknowns. So if we look at their hand and it has a bridge or a whir, we take it. If it doesn't, we probably just leave their hand be, because then we get to untap, add a counter to the Ballista, attack for 6, they go to 4, and we have a Ballista with 3 counters on it, which even if they bridge at that point, then we just add a counter and remove all 4 of the counters from the Ballista and kill them. So this is the turn where they have to bridge us to really have a chance to win this game. And so I felt like it was worth it to lose our click to potentially take their bridge this turn. And we see that they have Pixis land, which doesn't help them, so we just let them keep it all. So then they just concede. Like, they could play the Pixis if they want to, and then untap, and we like put them to 4, and then they're just dead the following turn no matter what. So that was that game. Now game 3. It's a little bit slower of a hand, but I think that's okay. We can hopefully spell stutter something, maybe Serum Visions into a good card, and then we can trinket. We have a lot of things that we could trinket for in post-board games, so that could be really valuable depending on what they have on the board. So they play Lantern, so we know about Dark Slick Shores. We cast Serum Visions, and we bottomed. We don't want the Mausoleum Wanderer. We don't want whatever the other card was. I didn't see it. We don't want that Vial either, but not much we can do about it. So they have an Inquisition, and they play the Dark Slick Shores. The Codex Shredder, so they shred away our Vial. Interesting, right? So now they draw the Inquisition and they play it. We spell stutter it, as you would expect. So we draw our, actually they get rid of our Wanderer. They don't want us to have it. So now it's like, what are they up to? On their draw step, I want to just Vendilion click them and see what's going on, because this is the turn where sped through it. Okay. So we took their War of Invention because they're one land away from being able to get the bridge with it. I didn't get to see what the other cards were. So Porphyry Nodes and Mox. So now we know all the cards that they had. And so now we're losing a creature at the beginning of your upkeep. So destroy the creature with the least power. So in their upkeep, they are destroying our smallest powered creature each turn. And they're at 19. So our plan is really to just attack them as low as we can. So we Trinket Mage for a Pithing Needle and attack for 4. Now we play the Needle. Do you have any responses? Because there's a Sanctum on top of your library and a Field of Ruin on top of mine. So you're going to Codex Shredder. Shredder yourself, because land doesn't really help. Well, another Botanical Sanctum. That doesn't help. So now you're going to let this Needle resolve, and you're just going to draw a Botanical Sanctum in your turn, and you have 2 Lanterns on the battlefield. Because I'm going to name Codex Shredder or Lantern. So they sacrifice Lantern, targeting themselves. So they shuffle their library, another land on top. Okay, that's not what they wanted. So they have no cards in hand. They're just trying to find that bridge at this point. So now, do you let the Needle resolve? They do. Oh yeah, I forgot it's naming a card, so that's the end of the replay. So basically, I'm needling them, and I'm naming Codex Shredder. So they can't activate their Codex Shredder, but we both know what's coming with the Lantern. So on their turn, they untap, and they get to kill the Spellstarter Sprite, because it's the only 1 toughness creature, and they draw the Spire of Industry. So they play the Spire of Industry, and we untap, and they're at 15. So what we do is we play a land, and we play Island and Grand Architect. So we play Grand Architect, which makes the Click into a 4-power creature and the Trinket Mage into a 3-power creature. So then we attack for 7, putting the opponent down to 8. So then on our next turn, we can basically play we sacrifice the Grand Architect when we do that. To the Porphyry Nodes. And then we can Trinket Mage for the Ballista, and then the Ballista would be lethal. And then we have the Academy Ruins to keep bringing back the Ballista to be lethal. Or the other line we could take is we could just leave up Field of Ruin, but then we would lose our Trinket Mage to the Porphyry Nodes. So we kind of want to play one of our creatures. I think it makes more sense to play the Architect first. Yeah, so basically, then the following turn, when we play the Trinket Mage to get the Ballista, we would also have Field of Ruin up, because we would have 6 lands. So then, if they have an out on top of their library, then we can activate Field of Ruin to target their land, so that they have to shuffle their library. So I think what ended up happening, we won this game, and therefore won the match. But it was basically they didn't find anything on their turn, so they had to sacrifice the Lantern to shuffle their library, which meant we didn't know what they were drawing, because there's no longer a Lantern on the battlefield to tell us. But then they did not find an answer to our board, so we ended up killing them. Just played the Trinket Mage, get Ballista, and then cast Ballista and killed them. So even if they found the bridge, it would not be enough. It would be too late. So that's basically how this game panned out. I think that we get a lot better post board in this matchup when we bring in all those cards. We bring in like almost our whole sideboard in this matchup. It feels like it's certainly losable, but I feel like it's in our favor. So yeah, this deck seems I I don't know if it's gonna be like the next big thing to take off in modern or anything, but Mono Blue Devotion. If you played this deck in standard, I mean I guess it was a different deck, but it was a fun deck in standard, and I think it's also a fun deck in modern. You have a lot of interactive tools. You have a toolbox with the Trinket Mage. You have a lot of sweet hits from the old days of standard, where Fairies deck countering all their spells you play, taking your combo pieces, and then just Trinket Mage kind of feels like a Stoneforge Mystic. It's maybe not, can't get Batter Skull, but maybe the fair kind that I played with like Trusty Machete. I even played the Basilisk Collar too. Maybe that's why it feels like that. And Walking Ballista is kind of like Sigil of Distinction. Anyway, this deck, I think it's fun. It has a lot of tools that it can maneuver and compete with a lot of the top decks in Modern. And if you haven't tried a deck like this, I would recommend giving it a shot. And if you have any sweet cards that you would like to suggest for the deck, let me know in the comments, and I could do my best to address what I think of them.